Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcorian Guides, bringing you my guide for Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 on Master Ninja difficulty. Today we're doing Chapter 1, which is called the Sky City Tokyo. And right off the bat, you're going to be fighting off, 4 or 5 different of the White Spider Clan ninjas. That's what I think they're called. I'll just call them White Ninjas, or White Spider Clan to be specific. So, first things first, they're going to be relatively aggressive, and they're going to, just basically come right for you. So I recommend going for a Zuna drop so that way you can at least get a good couple of kills off of them. And I do want to preface this by saying that most of this guide, at least in the beginning few chapters, could be very potentially boring because I'm going to be going for nothing but UTs and OTs for the most of it. So just as a quick recap for those that have never played Ninja Gaiden 2, UT stands for Ultimate Technique, and that's what I'm doing right here. You can charge it up to level 2, which level 2 is a red charge and blue is a level 1 charge. And you just hold down the heavy button, and whenever you're fully charged, you launch it out and you do basically an almost nearly invincible move to pretty much just obliterate an enemy. And speaking of obliteration, that's what OT stands for. It's whenever an enemy is delimbed, you run up to them and you press the heavy button, and after that they basically just get killed. No matter how many limbs they lost, it doesn't matter. As long as they lost a limb, you can OT an enemy and be fine. So, Sigma 2 is considered, and actually basically is, easier than the original Ninja Gaiden 2, which was on Xbox 360. So, the main difference is, the first fight, you fight off just regular White Spider Clan ninjas, but in Ninja Gaiden 2 itself, you fight off the Black Spider Clan ninjas, which they throw explosive kunais, I think it was. And they are, they seem like they're just, well, actually, just even in this game, they're just hell to deal with. So, I'm not going to be focusing on explaining everything about this game. However, I probably will be trying to explain some other small tidbits. For example, if you were to jump and then land on the ground, as soon as you land, you can press and hold the heavy attack. And after that, when you charge it up your UT, you just charge it faster. So, just a little fun tidbit. Of course, for those that probably don't know, you can actually use essence, which is like basically the currency. There's yellow, red, and blue. Yellow is currency, blue is health, and red is Nimpo, and you'll see that later. You can use that to charge up your UTs faster. One yellow essence equals 1 level, so if there was 2 essence, you would charge up twice. And also, you can chain together UTs. Even if you're using the essence to get the UT off, you can actually chain both of them together and still get at least a percentage of that money. I think you get like 20% of the actual main value of the first essence. But then after that, you get like even more money. And I believe that money is dropped more often by combos. So if you want to have a good combo multiplier, I think it's like 20 is when you start getting more. If you want a more combo multiplier, then you just, throw shurikens by using the special button or circle button in my case. Circle or B or whatever you're playing on. But, well, since I'm playing Sigma, it's going to be Circle. So I'm probably going to be referring to most of this game as that. I've already gotten, like, I think 28 of however many crystal skulls there are. So you won't be seeing me get those unless I just randomly come across one. Right now, in my current playthrough, I am up to, like, I think Chapter 13. So this guide is doable. I will be doing it. I will be finishing it. I did this playthrough, like, a while back. Like, I actually just played it on my own. And from there, I kind of just learned all the ins and outs of different strategies and stuff. Most strategies are going to come from basically fighting the bosses, because most regular enemies, at least in Chapter 1, aren't anything I would consider too difficult. I mean, this is just me talking, and since I'm just more used to this kind of stuff, in my opinion, I feel like most of the first part isn't that hard. However, when you get to here, you have to fight off your first of the Black Spider Clan ninjas, and at least that's what I call them. I don't remember if they have a distinctive name or not, but we'll just call them that. So, go for a Nimpo attack. So, of course, inputting the heavy and special. So, triangle and circle. But at the same time, you go for the Nimpo. The reason why I recommend going for Nimpo, and just you can go haywire with it. I don't know why I can't talk. You can go haywire with it. So, in this fight particularly, because there is a Nimpo chest right up those stairs. So my recommendation for fighting these assholes is relatively simple. Just a Zuna drop. A Zuna drop, flying swallow. And you'll see me do that very often too. Especially after I Zuna drop one of them, because it takes like, I think like 2 or 3 Zuna drops just to kill one. And sometimes whenever you Azuna drop, you can just go straight for a flying squall to make sure that you pretty much kind of quote-unquote stun them so they can't move anymore. Because that's the main trick, is you want to make sure that they're never moving. Because once the Black Spider clan guys start moving, they're going to start throwing explosive, kunais at you, and you don't want that. So what are the ways of getting rid of a kunai if you get stuck with it? There are a couple of ways. First of all, block. You will take a little bit of damage, but if you do, you can actually block when they're throwing it at you and knock it completely off. However, if you do get stuck with it, you can actually block, and then it will explode, but you'll take, very minimal damage. Nothing too bad. However, there is a way where you can take no damage. You can either do a UT, or you can be inside of an Azuna drop. And I think also a Windmill Technique as well, which Windmill Technique is executed by pressing X and square at the same time, jumping toward your opponent, and I think pressing X and square again when you're near them. It's either you press it once or you press it when you're, jumping toward them. And I will be using the Windmill Technique quite often. Well, okay, not that often, but I'll be using it for quite a few boss fights, especially Zidonius. So you'll see that when we get there, but that's like a much later chapter, and that's basically Zidonius 2 fight. So you'll see me use it a couple of times. But yeah, for the most part, most of chapter 1, I recommend just doing UTs. And if you're having trouble trying to pull off a UT, you're trying to find a good comfort zone to get it going, my recommendation is just run away. Even if they're chasing you, just run away. Just either run, toward a corner or just something, anything. Like right there, you saw that little corner. You can run past that little corner, and sometimes we'll actually trick the enemies into just walking into the wall, and they'll stop pursuit for just a few seconds. However, you can take some damage while you're doing UT, and my thing is with this game, if you take damage, it's fine. If you're charging UT and you take damage, that's perfectly fine. Now, granted, when you do a UT on an enemy and you kill one with a UT, typically, and I don't think there's any other way, or I don't think you get anything else out of it, but you only ever get yellow essence out of it. So if you're trying to go for, maybe health, then don't bother with doing UT, but just instead, you could just do a blue UT, that way you get one delimb and maybe get an OT after it. So that way you can potentially get blue Nimpo. Not blue Nimpo, blue health essence. So the other thing too is getting Nimpo, and it's hard to describe. Okay, so health spawns when you basically lower on health. Health seems to spawn quite often in this game anyway, so there's really no need to ever really use items that much, and you'll see that I do it quite often. If you have to use an item, then so be it, but I'd recommend not using items as much as you possibly can unless you absolutely have to use it. Now, granted, later chapters, midway through, we're going to have tons of money, and because of that, you could start, spending your items all willy-nilly if you wanted to. But up until that point, I'd recommend at least trying to keep them on at all times. At least try to keep max items on at all times, especially the grains of salt, I think it was. No, the grains of life, I think it was. And of the herb essence. Basically the low-level healing item, especially with the devil's mushroom. I recommend keeping that on just in case, because the thing is with Nimpo in this game, sure, it might not come back very often, but I'm not going to do it too often anyway, to the point where I need to collect Nimpo again. So the thing is, for Nimpo, I recommend just only using it in very, very specific fights that you know that you're going to get Nimpo back from, like a chest, because sometimes chests are actually just not random. They actually are set chests. However, there are times where they are random, so I'll show those off when we get there. And I probably won't be going for all the items either. I just want to say that real quick, that I might miss a couple. But for the most part, I'm going to try to go for all the health upgrades that I possibly can, that I know of. Especially the Demon Seal Jewels. So you'll see those when we get there. Not the Crystal Skulls, but just, the seals in general. If you do come down here, it's not really a bad idea, but I Azuna dropped down here pretty much kind of on purpose. I just wanted to get down here faster. You don't have to. I recommend not doing it. That way you can stay up there and fight those guys off first and then come down here. Because having to deal with more than one enemy at a time could potentially be a run killer for some people. Now, another thing I do want to say real quick is I've had practice with this. And to be fair, I was a slight bit rusty. It's been like a week or two since I played Ninja Gaiden 2 at this point of this recording. So I was a tad bit rusty, especially since I beat the game and then now I'm coming back and pretty much starting over from scratch. So you will see me, you know, flub up and take damage a lot, and that may actually be good for some people because, you know, not everyone's going to be, you know, perfect at this game. Now, I'm not going to be able to no damage this game, and I want to at least be able to make a guide that's sort of relatable to, you know, the everyman that's playing Ninja Gaiden 2 Master Ninja mode, which is, of course, not everyone, but the ones that are caring enough to do it. You know, I want to be at least somewhat relatable to how your progress is going. But if you stick with my guide for the most part, or I mean anybody's guide for that, you can do whatever you want. You know, you don't even have to watch the full guide. Just, you know, click on, you know, whatever boss fight you need help with, and there you go. That's how I played this game. Is whenever I need to help, I just click on somebody else's video just for a boss fight or something, or just a certain spot. But for the most part, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2 isn't really what I would consider too difficult to really get through. Granted, that again, that's just years of just playing hard games, so I'm just kind of used to this crap. And especially one big thing is patience. You're gonna need a lot of patience with this game too, because you're probably gonna die a lot like I did, unless you're just, you know, an absolute god at this game. Also, my train of thought is kind of quick because I'm not really used to doing this style of game again, where like I'm more used to, you know, just talking about whatever instead of what's going on at all times, and that'll probably be what I'm gonna do. So just again, this is more so a case of a slight visual guide and not really much of an audio guide. That's what most of my guides basically are. Is just, yeah, I mean, granted, there's pretty much no point in my commentary, but, you know, it is what it is. I do it anyway because it's for fun. So, yeah, what else could I potentially talk about that I could explain? So, for those that are going about this guide on their own, like, if you want to do this game on your own, which is perfectly fine, and I recommend doing it, for those that are, you know, wanting to do things yourself, if you wanted any tips I can give you, like I said before, UTs. And also, I forgot to explain this earlier. This is one thing I want to explain about UTs. So, if the enemies are chasing you, just let them. Just run where you can, where you feel safe, or at least safer. And then after that, charge your UT. Even if you do take damage, even if they're throwing shurikens at you, who cares? Just let them hit you. As long as they don't hit you out of the UT, you're fine. And if you have to, just, you know, let a blue UT, you know, run its course. Because a blue UT is better than no UT. So that way you can at least get some damage. Especially getting an OT right after is very helpful. Also, so for this statue fight, the recommended move is Flying Swallow. Just Flying Swallow the hands whenever you can. Now, for me, as you can see, well, I do take some damage because I'm dumb. I like to attack the hands, and then when it's winding up for an attack, I run to the other hand. That's what I do. However, you can, you know, for the most part, just Flying Swallow spam, and you should be okay. If you stick on the outside of the arms on this fight, you can avoid most of the attacks, especially the grabs, which you do not want to get grabbed in Master Ninja. And I assume for those that are probably watching this, maybe you've played Master Ninja, or maybe you're interested in Master Ninja, or you're playing it right now, one of the two, you probably know or don't know that grabs in this game are practically an insta-kill. At least until you start getting much, much more health. So, for right now, grabs are going to be an ultimate killer. So yeah, whenever the head gets knocked down, just go for as much damage as you possibly can. Heavy attacks don't really, they're not the best. I'd recommend starting off with just like the basic heavy attack combo, which is just like, I think 3 triangles, and then after that, just go for square attacks. So that way you can at least have the speed in there while you're doing that. Also, this part, oh my god, this part. So, you saw the edit right there, but I died I don't know how many times. Right now, you guys are seeing this as a 30-minute video, or at least a 27, or however long it is. This is a relatively short-ish video, but here's the fun part. This entire chapter took me an hour and a half to beat, so that's what I had to deal with. For these, I'm gonna go ahead and explain this as much as I possibly can here, because this part could be, it could be a little brutal. So these bridge guys, nothing. They're nothing. They're shit. They're just fodder. They're you know, you just UT, you're fine. It's not that bad. However, the next wave of enemies coming up is going to suck major donkey balls. And you'll see in a minute, because we'll have to deal with mages. So, there's a couple of tricks I want to go ahead and dispel real quick. So, I run back here in this doorway. And the reason being is because, like, once you walk right out that doorway, the enemies start to spawn. Run back there and charge up. If possible, if you can make it in time, make sure you run behind, like, one of the doors, or one of the walls, sorry. And charge your UT in one of those corners, so that way the enemies have to run inside, and then you have more time to charge UT and launch it. When it comes to mages, go for Flying Swallows. I think this game starts you off with Flying Swallow. Well, yeah, it starts off with Azuna Drought Flying Swallow. I don't know about Windmill Technique. I think it does. But there is another technique that you can do. I don't do it very often, but you'll see me do it later, especially in Ayane's chapter, where I start doing the Windmill Technique more often. Which is, again, just for those that are, you know, don't remember, it's the X and square attack. So where you have, like, this sort of, what do you call it? I forget. Basically, whenever you jump, you'll see, like, a silhouette of Ryu, you know, falling behind him. That's how you know you're doing. And the reason why Windmill Technique works so well is because I think it does have iframes. I'm not exactly certain or not, but with that, you can at least knock them on the ground and get at least a few good combos, especially for these Black Spider ninjas. So for this part, dealing with the Black Spiders, I'd recommend just going for as many UTs as possible. And if you get one guy chopped, like if you get one arm chopped at all, then go for it. Also, we do have the Lunar Staff, and we're going to be using it. But for the most part, throughout this game, I'm going to be using mostly the Dragon Sword. Because the Dragon Sword, in my opinion, is just, well, it's a high-quality weapon. I will be using other weapons, but for the most part, I'm going to be using the Dragon Sword because it chops really well. And Lunar doesn't seem to chop limbs. Alright, real quick. For those that don't want to deal with these two specific ninjas, I'm not sure if they actually despawn or not. I'm not 100% sure on this. But if you actually chop, I don't know the name of it, but if you chop the portrait wall where they basically spawn from, if you chop that down before you get the chest, what can actually happen is they'll pretty much just not show up. So you get, like, you know, two dudes that don't show up. That kind of happens a lot in this game, especially sometimes when you're fighting an enemy and then you die and then you go back to actually go to that spot and then all of a sudden they're just gone. So yeah, more guys are going to come out of here. They're going to spawn out here. I'd recommend not fighting near the well area out there. Just fight like in here, at least in the fight inside the building, just to be on the safe side. Also, I did run back and saved it after that entire horde mode fight. I highly recommend you save this game whenever you finish a horde mode, if you possibly can. If you can run back, save your game as often as possible. Always run back to those save points because that will, of course, save you a lot of trouble. Because I died, it took me an hour and a half to beat this entire chapter because I died so many times, just even trying to beat that. So right there, the reason why he got his leg chopped off was because I did a counterattack. So countering attack, for those that aren't sure, you know, of course you hold the block button, and then whenever an enemy attacks you, you press the light or heavy attack, and then from there you do a chop. I think light goes for legs. I'm not sure if there's like any difference. I've never really tested that theory, but I'm pretty sure triangle normally goes for like heads and stuff. So yeah, falling down here, you have bats to deal with, and as you saw, I bought some items. I bought what I could. I don't recommend buying Devil Mushroom, not yet. Just focus on buying like healing items if you possibly can. And of course, there are some healing items that can show up within chests and stuff, but again, they are set. So if you do know where they're at, then just don't worry about buying whatever healing item you need at that time, unless you have the money for it and you're like kind of low on health, and just heal before a marketplace, and then from there, you know, you just get your stuff. So yeah, bats, they suck. They suck major ass. Because they just have this weird sort of, like, I don't know how to describe it, but Ryu just doesn't seem to ever really hit them that well with his, at least with the Dragon Sword. So if you're ever dealing with, you know, the fodder enemies like bats and like ghost fish, then Vigorian Flail is your best bet for dealing with those. So this part right here, this part can be relatively challenging, but if you did save your game, then going back isn't as bad, because at least then you have to deal with, you know, the first wave of guys. But for these assholes, I recommend doing at least a blue UT, just a level 1 UT, as much as you can. Flying Swallows, see if you can try to get that RNG to work with you, so that way you can get a nice head chop. And just keep dodging, you know, just keep running back, and get them at least out of sight of your camera. So that's a little trick that I end up using quite often. And I don't know if it's actually a thing that truly does work, but for some weird reason, I feel like psychologically it works. So if it does, it does. That'd be cool if it did. I doubt it, but The thing is, to explain the camera trick, again, I don't know if this is 100% real. I think it's just my brain being weird. When enemies are not on screen, it, for some reason, makes it easier for me to charge a UT or to do a certain maneuver. And we'll get to that when we, you know, in later chapters when we see it be used way more often. But, again, I don't think it's true, but it just seems somewhat likely. Like, I feel like they don't actually go for melee attacks and they don't go for grabs unless they're on camera. I'm not certain if that's true, but I could totally believe it if it was. Because I think, like, even Devil May Cry kind of did the same thing, too, where, like, if enemies aren't on screen, they have, like, a certain thing they do. But, so, this part right here, be careful not to die here, because if you die here, you're going right back. There is no checkpoint between this and the cutscene. If you get overwhelmed, go ahead and launch a Nimpo, so that way at least you can do some damage. And, of course, you know, go for the delimbed, and whenever one of them spawns essence, just go for that. If you need essence that bad, there's a plant right there that does drop some, so that way you can actually use it to get a free potential red or blue UT, depending on, you know, how much you get. So, also, I know I'm talking quite fast, but for the most part, this guide is going a lot quicker than I thought it would be. This part right here, this little area is kind of funny because if you're using the lunar staff to do like a sort of, which is what I wanted to go for first, but then I gave up on it because it just didn't seem like it was working very well. I used the lunar staff UT charge on these stairs, and whenever I was charging, Ryu would slide down the stairs. However, he doesn't do that with the dragon sword, so the reason why it's a nifty little tool to be using the lunar staff for this part is because of the fact that, like, while you're sliding down the stairs, the enemies are going to be basically missing most of their attacks. And with that, you can, you know, get a potential free charge. However, Lunar Staff level 1 just doesn't seem like it's doing enough anyway, and I feel like Dragon Sword just works better for these types of things. Especially, of course, the delimb, which is what you want to go for the most part when it comes to, like, the first couple of chapters of this game, is you want to go for delimb as much as possible. And especially when you play the girls, Momoji, Rachel, and Ayane, when you play them, and you play their chapters specifically, delimbs and OTs are going to be very, very helpful. Especially, oh my god, especially for Momoji, oh my lord. So, funny enough, this game, like I mentioned earlier, is actually easier than its counterpart. It's easier than the Xbox 360 release of Ninja Gaiden 2. And I don't know exactly all the changes, however, I do know that I think they added the girls in this. They had like their own missions, the same thing with Sigma 1, with Rachel, having, I think, what was like 4 or 5 different chapters of her own. Or, no, I think it was like 3 or 4. It wasn't that much. It felt like it was a lot, but it really wasn't that bad. So, them being added, this is something I want to explain in a minute. So, one thing that I've noticed about this game in comparison is, at least things that I know of, is that your weapon upgrades are actually selected where you can upgrade whatever weapon you want when you get to those blue marketplace stores. However, you can't upgrade whenever you feel like it. You can't use Essence to purchase upgrades. Now they're just free, but they're in set places. And you can only get Dragon Sword level 3 on, like, I think Chapter 10 or Chapter 8. It's like 8 or 10 or one of them. I believe it's 10. So you can only get it there because, well, game, I guess. Sigma is weird because, like I said, it's both harder and not because what makes it easier is the fact that there are less specific enemy spawns, because, like, again, like the first fight literally spawns nothing but Black Spider Clan. However, Sigma does unfortunately have, I mean, not that it's bad, but like Sigma 2's the missions where you play as the girls, each one of them, at least except for Rachel, hers is a little easier than the other two, but Momoji's is just so damn brutal and it's so damn tough. And, you know, of course we'll see that when we get there. That's just Chapter 5. And it's ridiculous how much of a drop in difficulty it is. Because, well, not a drop, but like just a rise in difficulty. It's extreme. So, okay, real quick, let me go ahead and explain this. So, as you saw, right up the stairs, activate them to come, you know, to activate the enemies to spawn and start running down the stairs. And then instantly jump off the side railing of the stairs so you can land down here. And as soon as you land, go for a UT. And go for as many delimbs as possible. Even if they're attacking you, even if they're throwing kunais at you and you're getting stuck, go for that UT. Charge that UT. Do it as much as you possibly can. Because there's only 2 ways of them, which is not too bad. But other than that, they will give you grief and they will be hell. So I recommend just going for as many UTs as you possibly can. It may be boring, but it works. For me, it's like the safest option. Either that or go for a Zuno drop. You have to make sure you get those iframes. So this is the, I don't know what they call him, but I just call him the Arachnid Boss. So we'll just call them the Arachnids. UTs. Just blue UT. At first, I thought, like, oh, I could just do, like, maybe a Zuno drop thing with Lunar Staff, which we'll see when we fight Genshin in Chapter 2. That's going to be a thing that you can do on him. It's great. But, no, for this, I just go for UTs. And whenever he does his Nimpo attack, which does a lot of damage, by the way, just launch your UT. Or launch a Nimpo. If you feel unsafe at any time at all and you need those iframes bad, then go for a Nimpo. Like, no harm, no foul, because you'll get your Nimpo back at the end of the chapter anyway, like in the next chapter. So another thing I want to explain real quick, by the way, this is pretty much just the same boss fight. I don't think there's anything different here, so nothing really new to explain besides Flying Swallow, go for one hand to the other, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, watch out for those grabs, they're very deadly. So, about the camera. The camera will actually pan to wherever enemies spawn. So you can actually tell if enemies, so that's how, like, for instance, when I was on those stairs and I fought those 2 waves of Black Spider Clan ninjas that we saw earlier before the Arachnid Boss, I don't know if you guys could see it or not, but it's something you really notice when you play this game a lot, is you'll start to see that the camera kind of pans on its own, and when it does that, that's a good sign that there are enemies spawned, and that's how I knew, you know, when to essentially run down the stairs. And you'll see me do that quite often, especially in the next chapter, I think it was. Yes, as we go back to the Hayabusa village. So this fight, it does last a bit longer than the last one, and you see that it has half health, and you're probably thinking like, oh, why can't I just do triangle and finish it off? Well, that doesn't work. But yes, even though it gets regenerative health, you can still attack the hands and do quite a bit of damage. And again, it's just the same fight, just this time you fight just for a little bit longer. But other than that, yeah, that's pretty much about it, except for maybe whenever they're going for a slam attack, you can actually press L1 and do like a dodge. Like just, you know, hit the analog stick and dodge out of the way, and then from there you're fine. So anyway, I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everybody.